put them on hold listed in this listed in the minutes. You tell me. I mean, I'm not happy with approving minutes that are incorrect. But these were identified as items that had to be corrected twice to the staff, and that these were not. The other items I listed to be corrected were done.
So you're suggesting that the 3 contracts, Remmers, Warren, and Analytical, were not approved?
Were not approved. They were
on May 25th?
That is correct. They were both voted 4-0-0 to be put on hold for verification of cost. But these minutes say that they were approved. Now, Phil, if you would like, Chair.
It's not what it's, excuse me.
Yes, Jim.
The minutes I'm reading says DR Warren Trailer Offices located, WPCF ground, $600 per month board, motion to hold the contract as printed.
Now, which version?
Alpha Analytical says the same thing.
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned, the minutes are correct, and I make a motion, we accept them.
All right, the version that I have doesn't show that. Of course, there's so many versions hanging around. So based on what I'm hearing now, I make a motion, we accept the 5:25 minutes, the 5:25.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There's a vote, 3-0-0.
I apologize, because I said there were several versions of that floating around the emails, and I must have not picked up the right one.
Copies, I'm dealing with are the ones that she sent out most recently.
Well, I probably got them mixed up with the other 2 versions that were sent out.
I did the same thing at home, did Tandy, so it got to be the number of ones.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of June 8th.
May I have a second?
No,
June 8th.
June 8th,
The meeting at Swiss Beach.
Off-site meeting at Swift Beach.
that was already approved and posted online. So why are we now?
It's a listing that she had put on the, and I had asked her because there was spaces missing on the minutes as posted. I'm just trying to collect them and get my.
The 6-8 minutes were approved on 7/13, and they have.
Okay, we can pass over the 6-8 minutes then if they've already been approved.
And posted on the town website.
And
Good.
I make a motion, we approve the meeting, July 5th, accept the minutes from July 5th
As printed?
as printed.
I'm sorry, I cannot accept that they were not updated from the last.
What is your correction you
Well,
wish to
one
make?
is that we started the meeting at 5 o'clock, not 6:30. There's nothing here about what minutes were discussed. And the vote for Article 5 was 4-1-0, not 4-0-1.
Okay, motion to amend. The
Make-
calling of the meeting from 6:30 to 5:30 PM, 5 PM. And the vote for Article 5 be at 4-1-0.
And there was no vote recorded for Article 1. Sorry, it's submitted Article 1. There was no discussion of Article 2 and 3 that we voted to do something else with them. I mean,
2 and 3 are not on the minutes. Are not
That's
referred to
what-
in the minutes.
that's why I have a problem with them, because we discussed them and voted on them. They're not unlisted. I mean, it's up to you if you want to. I will not approve them.
Let's set that aside for now, if I may,
And
and we'll hold. Well,
Yeah.
you were suggesting that the articles are incomplete that were discussed at the meeting.
Yes.
And what is missing from this article? Which articles are missing, please?
I think Article 2, Article 2 is not listed and we voted to bypass it. Article 3 was accepted. It failed to be accepted at 2-3-0.
Yep, that's on here. Vote was
Yep.
2-3-0.
But how did we vote? What did we vote for? We voted on it. What was the vote for? The board quickly voted and discussed Article 3 due to the fact it was previously discussed when Article 5. The board voted 2-3-0. What did we vote it? Okay, we voted 2-3-0. What did we vote?
Do you have any information to that?
Yeah, we voted to pass over, but it's not in the minutes.
A motion to amend, add, pass over?
Okay, if will you deal with getting these amended so that they go to the town website corrected?
Article 5 discusses 2-3, talks about amendment, I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
No.
Article 1 discusses Article 2 being voted 5-0-0.
See,
So I don't know, it's all in there, but I don't know
if
what
you look at Article 5, it discusses Article 2, Article 3. But it doesn't tell me what vote, other than it said that we discussed it, but it didn't tell me what the 2-3-0 vote was for.
as previously explained in Article 5. You guys
Did you
discussed
say,
that.
do you, that the two,
I don't know.
your notes, Sandy, say the 2-3, Article 3, that the vote of 2-3-0 was to pass over?
It says, okay,
What is,
this is
What do you
confusing.
wanna vote-
Article 3, we voted 2-3-0 to accept it, which means it failed. Then we voted to pass over, voted 3-2 to pass over. So there was 2 votes taken on Article 3. One was to accept it, and the vote was 2-3-0, which means it failed. And then we took a vote to pass over, and the vote was 3-2.
okay, for the pertinent information of our Article 3 is we passed over it. That's the final vote. What happened previously was not necessarily, didn't necessarily mean to be included in the
Yeah,
minutes.
well-
But the final vote was 2-3-0 to pass over.
No,
You
the
just-
2-3-0 was to accept it, which means it failed.
Okay,
Then we took a second vote to pass over, which was 3-2-0.
you want to amend it to say that then?
Well, if you're,
Motion to amend 3-2-0 to pass over Article 3.
okay, and you're amending Article 5 as a 4-1-0, correct?
Yes. Motion to accept as amended?
Make a motion.
Make a motion to accept as amended in 3 locations.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Now, my question is, how will these adjustments be given so they go on the master? Who will be responsible for making sure the minutes are amended?
I will I'll talk
I
with
would say the clerk.
Christina and with the town clerk to clarify as amended how they appear as official minutes.
Typically, if something is amended, we cross it out and put the correction in, and that is then scanned and sent to the clerk as such, so someone can see that manually somebody amended the minutes.
That's why I asked what you
Yeah.
want to do and make the corrections in the
Yeah.
notes so that it is written in the minutes that are submitted as
Okay.
amended.
As amended. All right, next one.
July 13th. Motion to accept. Do we have,
I have a,
may I have a second, please?
okay. No, I will not second it. I
Okay.
got problems.
Which do you want to, I have to have a motion to accept or as amended.
Well, if I tell you
Can't
what,
change it unless it's amended officially.
I will not second.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion. What is your change you wish to make, Sandy?
One, Jimmy Drury was there, even though it says he was absent. One, we had minutes and we accepted minutes. The vote recorded did not agree with the vote taken for the minutes.
Which minutes do we accept?
We accepted March 23rd, but the vote was 3-0-2.
So there's missing minutes on this one?
No. It's confusing, well, okay, if
It
I
didn't-
read it, March 23rd as well as May 11th and June 8th were voted 5-0-0. March 23rd was voted 3-2-0. And we voted to hold the 5:25 minutes for correction.
Are those the only changes you're,
We voted, 6 contracts and they're not listed. So we voted the contract for South Shore Generator, and we voted for 4 contracts from GHD, but there was another contract.
Was there
We
another?
voted a contract for Synagro Contractors for a 3-year contract, and it's not listed in here.
we have 3 contracts that we voted on that evening. I've got them
No,
on,
we did 6.
I've got 3 on the agenda. The other one's a possible vote,
You did South Shore Generator, Syngo Contracts, and
GHD.
GHD, which were 4 of them. If
But I
you took a
believe-
look,
4 for GHD,
I
yeah.
was gonna
look
say,
at the minutes.
I'm looking at the what is supposed to, was on the agenda
I
that
know,
we called
but-
to the floor. If they're not in the minutes, then the minutes are faulty.
The one for
Can't go forward with those minutes.
the Synagro one is not, if you take a look on page 2, unless I missed it, it goes from South Shore Contract to GHD. It does not include Synagro.
make a motion, we postpone these minutes for corrections.
I will second that.
All in favor?
I'll say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote 3-0-0 to hold July 13th for inadequate minutes. Next one is April 13th.
April 13th, the problems I had at the last meeting were not, I did not see an update to April 13th.
Let the record show that Peter Dunlap arrived.
I thought the meeting was 1:30.
The workshop starts at 1:30.
So if I take a look at this, it says that we voted, the OSD vote for the project was 201 and it was 210. The minutes that, there is no record on the April 13th that there were minutes that were accepted and held, so that's missing. It says here they could not read it, listen to it. And with only
No,
three,
that,
and with only 3 people present, we voted 4-0-0 to adjourn. What I will do for 4:30.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm just chuckling. I'm reading 400 and there was only 3 people in attendance.
For the 413, if we hold it, I will send a note to the office as to what must be corrected on the 413. Since part of the,
I make a motion, we hold these meetings, these minutes for the corrections Sandy's gonna,
Hold April 13th.
yes.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-0-0. Did you vote on that, Peter? Did you vote on this one?
Yes.
4-0-0. And Sandy, these changes,
I will send the changes to the office.
copy me, please.
I normally do.
Well, I just
I will
want to
have
say
it.
it.
For the record, I copy Bernie.
Next one is June 22nd.
Again, we had a vote on an NPD ESP we had a vote. That's not recorded in the minutes. We also voted on 3 contracts that are not recorded in the minutes.
Make a motion, we hold these minutes, and Sandy will let the office know what's missing. Minutes for June 22nd.
These are the same changes that happened 2 weeks ago, and they weren't.
I make a motion.
I have them, yep.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Yeah, contracts. I got a lot of notes here too, so we were here.
Yeah, but they're not in the minutes.
All those in favor of holding, say aye.
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 Opposed? It's a vote, 4-0-0. And the last one is July 27th.
Okay, just had a chance to look at that one. The minutes and votes that we were taken in the July 27th minutes are not included on the minutes. And it does say that they were discussing about the open meeting discussion. It says from the clerk. It doesn't say which clerk sent the document requesting the information. Then later on, when we talked about our workshop, the minutes included the time and the date of everybody attending. That information was not confirmed until August 4th, well after the July 27th meeting.
You're correct.
So that was very confusing. That information that hadn't occurred showed up in this minutes.
You want these meetings held for correction?
And I just, to the point that Jimmy also made this meeting and they only showed 4 people attending.
They're mad at me.
And the vote was 4-0-0, even though there were 5 of us there. So we have those corrections to be made.
Motion to hold.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So out of the
Opposed?
four
It's a
zero
vote.
zero. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 sets of minutes. Do I have all 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I got 7.
I'm missing 2. May 25th was approved.
Yes.
June 8th.
Was approved.
No, June 8th was removed because it's already been approved and posted on the town website. July 5th, as amended. July 13th hold. April 13th hold. June 22nd hold. What did we do on July 5th?
July 5th passed with adjustments, with the change to the time and the vote and the passovers.
July 5th as amended, so I'm still missing something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We discussed 6,
Discuss 7.
and there were 7.
Why don't we,
Oh,
on
July,
this-
I know what it is, July 7th, July 5th is listed
Repeat.
twice,
Yeah,
so that's why my count is wrong. So I have 2 sets of minutes to approve, 1 as amended and 1 ready to go.
I was so hoping to get out of hot water this time.
Well, you can send drafts, if you
Yes.
mark them as drafts. But it
Yes.
just,
I know I can. But I'd rather they be corrected.
I can't accept them as they are.
That's fine. We'll get them corrected.
Okay.
And the next is the sewer commission business, first half billing of FY '24. Do you have something in the blue folder?
I believe we we have something to sign for a first half commitment FY '24 users fee, $3,606,346.44.
I make a motion.
I have a motion to accept. May I have a second?
To Foster,
Foster, Town of Wareham.
John Foster. To authorize him to do the billing.
I second it.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 The vote, 400. We have something on 47 Sandwich Road.
There is an email in our packet.
Thank you, sir.
So Guy, what's that building using now for gallons?
So it's in your packet. I included the gallons. It's in cubic feet. So I looked at the two highest, which was 7,300 cubic feet, what equates to, you got 303 gallons per day. I also used 7,100 gallons, the second highest, which equated to 295
I'm
gallons
sorry.
per day.
Guy, what is this usage? Is this water?
Yes,
Oh,
it's vacant, so I have to use some kind of factor. So one of the things that
well, what did we approve it at?
we've approved nothing. This building was a commercial building, used as a doctor's
How
office.
many EDUs do we charge them?
I have no idea. One probably, because it was an office building for doctors. So they're trying to convert it. So they're doing a building permit, and the building permit says, will I approve the conversion of the residential, proposed residential from the commercial? And the question, because of the moratorium, I have to ask, does it exceed the gallons? We have a moratorium that says no increase to flow. So that's the exercise. So I took the water use, which you have, and then I also gave you the document from the DEP that states for the town of Wareham, the average person uses 50 gallons. So it's a 3-bedroom, 100, 100, 100 is 300. The highest is 303, so I feel we're okay. But I wanted the board to be aware.
Historically, we've always said 330 gallons per day is a usage for a 3-bedroom home.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And so that's one EDU. You're
Well-
telling me this business site was only charged one EDU. So to me, that's a wash.
Well, it is. It's really, but I want, because I actually have a 30-gallon discrepancy. I could, but when I use the water use from the DEP for the town of Wareham, each individual uses 50 gallons. I'm good. I could have just hit the button and been done with it and said we're good, but I wanted the board to be aware because the board keeps challenging, what are we approving? Why are we approving? Is it right?
So this is a wash.
It is a wash. I'm just validating it so it'll answer all the questions of how we process these requests.
But
I make a motion, we allow it.
330 gallons has been our standard for one EDU.
330 gallons is a design criteria, which is Title V design. Actual wastewater use can be a little less. But anyways, it's a wash, and I validated it by numbers. I wanted you to have the numbers. And
Prior business was one EDU,
yes,
3 bedrooms equals one EDU.
yes. Or that's right, because single-family home, we have single-family homes, one EDU that have 5 bedrooms.
Well, like that's
We
not
have
what-
7 bedrooms, so yeah.
Normally, we say with 3 bedrooms, it's a one EDU.
We say a single-family home is 1 EDU.
Okay,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the
I make
change
a
from
motion,
the,
make a motion.
beg pardon?
I make the motion.
Okay. to accept the change from from a business to a residential and having no impact on the usage and therefore no impact on the moratorium.
Absolutely.
Have a second on that? I added words to your motion. Will you accept that, Jim?
Yes, certainly.
Yes,
Yes.
second.
Peter? Yes.
Why are we suddenly changing from 110 gallons per person to 50?
We're not.
Why are we changing? We're really not changing. The town of Wareham, did I give you a document? The town of Wareham submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection the consumption of the town of Wareham, which is 50 gallons. So I'm using 50 gallons because it's existing. If you were going to design something from scratch, then the DEP requires the design to be based on Title V criteria. It's a whole separate issue. This is conversion from one to the other, and all we have to show is there going to be an excess of gallons being used to say, no, we can't do it, or yes, we can. So I use because I'm using water now, so here's the water, and they're saying 50 gallons is what they accept, so I use that criteria to say there'd be no impact to the system.
Satisfied, Peter?
Sure, that makes sense. Why didn't we always go with 100 till now?
I have no idea.
We haven't gone with it because it hasn't been a commercial to residential. We've done designs, all kinds of designs coming for us, and we make it done on 210 gallons per day. But this is a situation where they're going from one use to another, it's just change of use. And because there's a moratorium, I just want to
Nothing to do with it. The 50 to 100 is where the question is going.
answer it.
So you're saying now the new standard is 50?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the standard,
Is it now?
I'm using it because it's existing. I'm using water because I have no other criteria other than water. That building is vacant, so I have to look at all the water data to determine what the flow of that building is. So if I'm using the flow data, then I also use the DEP flow data per capita, which is 50. So all I'm saying is by using that data based upon water alone, we're good. We're not going to exceed the gallons we're presently getting. So therefore, it's not going to impact the moratorium. So it's a case on its own. It's not a design. It's not somebody doing something new.
Storage, we always figured 100 gallons per person.
Well,
Now they're only taking in 50. How we
no, we've never said 100. We've always said 55 gallons per person. It's 110 gallons per bedroom, and there's two persons per bedroom. We've never said 100 per person. Well, that's what the criteria says. Now, if there's only one person, like you have a family and two children, this is one, but still the design criteria is 2 per bedroom, which is 110 gallons, and we do the math. In this scenario, we're going by actual consumption, which we have at 50 gallons, and so therefore there's no, if you will, impact to the moratorium.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Okay,
No, thank you.
Hey, thank you. On the motion, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed? It's a vote, 400. The next one, if you don't mind, we'll skip over your report if we might.
I didn't want to do a report, because I think he has so much to do. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, in the unfinished business, I sent a letter to Bourne introducing myself and requesting an opportunity to meet with the sewer commissioners at Bourne and discuss the items that we have going forward that involve them. And we've hired a Mr. Lombardi, whose company is going to review the plant and the system to get an opinion as to the operation of the plant. It is fitting to do so under the circumstances. Guy who's been operating the plant for many, many years, and with a new person coming in, there may be some issues that we may want to examine. Not to suggest that Guy hasn't been doing a fantastic job over there, considering it's still running under the circumstances, but it just helps to have another set of eyes to look at it.
What was the cost?
We had 75,000, I think we agreed upon.
Coming out of what account?
That hasn't been determined yet. He hasn't signed the contract or hasn't been written.
But we don't know how to fund it yet.
Correct. Derek is doing it, but considering he's gonna be doing something for us, we're gonna be paying for it. I think
Okay.
that's a foregone conclusion.
So he's hired and make recommendations.
It hasn't come to us.
So
Okay,
so he hasn't been hired.
correct. Yes.
I thought you said we hired him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We submitted
Wrong
a,
phraseology. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Yes, they was careless.
we
in that
submitted a
word.
contract.
Yes. Okay, that's all our business for a regular meeting. Motion to adjourn, please.
I make a motion, we adjourn at 1:33.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's no discussion, so it's a vote. Moving on, do we have to a workshop that we have planned for 1:30 this evening? So I'll call the meeting to order at 10:36. No, excuse me, 1:36.
Oh, that clock's wrong.
It's 133.
It's 1:33.
1:33. Everybody write that down. First, our purpose in this workshop is I'll read it from our charter. In conjunction with other land use bodies, assist in developing a long-range strategic plan for guiding town growth and development.
I apologize.
So the people I have invited to speak with us this afternoon is involved in the project and the planning for the future. And it is our hope to gain some knowledge as to what impact those plans will have on our system. And we can include those things within our strategic projections. The first one, planning board we have, and Mr. King. He has and how are you, Michael? By all means, would you please come up? Yeah, make sure the green light's on your... Would you introduce yourself, please, and what you do here?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael King.
I think your microphone's off.
Yep, got the green light.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Could you bring it closer, please?
Swallow it.
Thank
How
you.
about that? Michael King, I'm the current chair of the Wareham Planning Board.
And what do you see, the things that are coming before you, how might they impact our future?
As far as the sewer
Growth, et
consumption?
cetera? Yeah.
Well, what we're seeing really is a lot of multifamily homes, which is a little bit concerning because we're increasing density at a faster rate than just regular single-family homes on the same size piece of property. So it's definitely going to put a strain on the water and sewer consumption.
I think the audience wants you to speak up a little bit, please.
'Cause I was always accused of being a loudmouth. I can't believe
It doesn't
you
sound
can't
like
hear
it's
me.
coming over the speakers.
Oh, well, let me try another. How about that microphone?
Oh, how are we doing in there, technician?
He's gonna come through, it's just gonna be a little bit distorted.
I can't get any closer to this thing. I can try.
How does that impact when they come before you? Obviously, they're looking for connections. And as you say, the two-family, they're looking for connections to sewage if they're on sewage, to say.
Correct. Well, I mean, case in point, the one that jumps to mind for me is the project on Main Street. So you had a large old captain's home that was, 4 bedrooms, I think it might have been. I'm not sure of the exact size, but it's a big home.
It's a nice building, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll say 5 bedrooms. And we're replacing it with 9 condominiums that all have 2 bedrooms or more. But it's on the same piece of property, and it's connecting to the sewer system, so we're effectively doubling the potential usage off of the same piece of property. And we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more and more high-density plans come before us, where there was once 1 home, and now they're proposing, 10. So for me, that's a little bit on the concerning side as far as trying to plan for water and sewer, because I can just see more.
Well, when were they permitted? Do you recall at all? Or
The one that's on Main Street, there's actually 2. So the White House that was taken down, that was permitted. It came before, no, it didn't come before us. It went right to ZBA. That was permitted probably about a year ago.
I think our difficulties going forward is that these new constructions that's being permitted are impacting the sewer system, and we aren't aware of what is happening, or the very fact that it is impacting, and we've got the moratorium.
Yeah, and a lot of times when the discussions are being held at the planning board meetings, sewer impact very rarely comes up as a subject, which it should. The other project on Main Street, the big building that's in renovations now across from the CVS, that came to the ZBA with a proposed, I think they wanted to put 14 units total in there.
Wow.
10 duplexes, and then I think 4 or 5 units in the building itself. So there's another case of a large building that might have had 4 bedrooms that is now, ultimately could have, 2 per times 14, do the math, 30 bedrooms on the same piece of property. But because there's a sewer connection already in existence, they don't have to apply for a sewer connection. So hence, the discussion never takes place about the impact. It's just,
I thought
it's
that was
already there.
denied.
It was. Well, it's, I think it's still in the process, but yes, that particular project was denied by the ZBA. The one further down where the White House was taken down, I was away when that project was heard, so I don't know the
Yeah,
particulars on that one.
So on March 24th, 22, we discussed the units on High Street and the units on Main Street and indicated that the 9 townhouses would be 27 bedrooms and would increase the flow by 2,090 because there were already commitments to those coming out of that captain's house. So we looked at that hard to say what it was now going on at that site and what would this change mean. So, yeah. So
Well,
as long as we know about it.
I'm not versed in the world of the water and sewer world. So, I'm just a layman looking at this with my common sense. The captain's house was empty. It wasn't contributing anything to the sewer system. Now you've got 9 townhouses in there, plus the 3 duplexes in the back that are all on that same piece of property. So it doesn't take college education to put 2 and 2 together and realize you've substantially increased the sewer usage for that piece of property.
Indeed. Jim, Peter, you had some comments?
No, I think this is gonna flip back to, what we're gonna have to put into for policy to restrict that kind of thing from happening. We've gotta figure out exactly where we are.
Right. And it's not
Better
that,
stop this.
it's not that all the projects are bad projects,
That's
but
true.
if you're looking at it from a water and sewer usage, that project isn't helping the situation. And had the project around the greenhouse been approved, and to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't denied based on water and sewer usage. It was just a poor design.
Nor had they come before us for sewer usage.
Yeah, it
They have
wasn't a
not-
factor
this-
because we don't get involved in that process.
Right, well, that's what I'm
They're not
saying.
involved.
If there's already a sewer connection, I think it's a foregone conclusion that whatever you put on the property is gonna have a right to connect.
But the builder for the two projects on High Street and Main Street came before us and asked for sewer usage. So it has happened that they know they need to talk to us.
Right.
So it happened, but the people that were doing the one around the greenhouse, I don't know what else to call it,
Yep.
had no information here at all. But one of the things we do is we take a look of what has been permitted, and that determines our volume we can have. Because we really, that's my understanding, what we look at what has been permitted for our gallons and our maximums.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, as a layman looking at it, I would look at it as you've got a moratorium in place. You can't have any more capacity, right?
That's correct. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, a building permit was applied for that building. And the building permit, the comment from the sewer was, we have a moratorium, there is no capacity, will not approve an increase of flow. It isn't
Right.
just a new connection, it's an increase. If you own a 2-bedroom home and you want to add a 3rd bedroom, that's an increase.
Correct.
So it's got to go through a building permit, and we would say to you, no, because that's an increase of flow. It's not allowed through here. But that doesn't mean that you or anybody else cannot approve it and it goes forward. We make our comment. We don't have the authority to say stop the presses. We will say to you, there's a sewer issue, there's a moratorium, and then we make the comment, and as far as it goes.
Then I think it would be an important change to the planning process that we got input from water and sewer on every project that came before us. So, because honestly, I've never seen a comment from water and sewer.
In fact, we aren't required.
Right, but I think that's a
And that's where there's-
pothole in the process.
Yes, indeed, there is.
Yeah.
Very much so. There's a disconnect.
Yeah, So-
Because it's a major resource that we're supplying, and here we are with one pipe going in, and you figure, okay, that's a home.
Right.
And then they just ran 4 other homes off it.
right. And now, and I don't know the developers of either project, so I don't have a dog in this fight. But on the greenhouse, as soon as that site plan that they presented was denied, they immediately ripped the roof off of it and raised the roof. You know what's going on. They're gonna put another unit up there on the top. They're gonna maximize the footprint of that house. So there's yet another bedroom, or at least another unit, which means probably 2 more people. So these are the things that I think there's a disconnect between the two, between
Yeah.
water and sewer and planning and water and sewer and ZBA, that we need to transfer information between us so that we can make better decisions.
I think we have to get involved in examining how the bylaws are written to allow the sewer response to be an
part of the
important
process.
process.
Yeah. Or at the very least, if there's, when the building permit, bless you.
Bless you.
When the building permit request comes in to town hall and water and sewer weighs in on it, a copy should be forwarded to both boards, the ZBA and to the planning. So that,
everyone
so,
should take an equal
so that
interest.
we can have that. And then, we can use that information for debate while we're discussing the site plan and say, the plan has its problems, so I think we can get past it, but how are you gonna get past the water and sewer moratorium? You're asking us to add 5 more bedrooms to this piece of property, and based on the moratorium, you can't do that.
We have a moratorium, but in some cases, it's almost a paper tiger. Because it doesn't have effect in controlling the existing changes that are multiplying the stress on the system.
But I
Mr.
think
Chairman, if I may, a question, Mr. King, do you
Yes.
mind, just for my clarity. The planning does not get involved in building permits?
we don't get, no, we don't.
Okay.
But we would welcome, honestly, I'm a huge fan of information. Give it all to me. Even if you think it really has no bearing on what we're hearing, at least if I have it, or the board has it, we can give it whatever weight it's due. But if we don't know what we don't know, then it's hard for us to understand how we're gonna properly permit, up the projects on Main Street.
And we don't know either till the building permit comes up. We're not involved.
Right.
And as an example, this board approved 3 single-family lots in Swiss Beach, raised family. One of them is now a duplex. We approved single family. It's a duplex. We had no control of that. I don't know who does. Somebody had to approve that building, but maybe it's not you. Maybe it's just the permitting process. So I think that may be a total disconnect all around. So to your point, more communication may alleviate those types of situations.
I think it would be much better process if everybody just kind of was intertwined and the information sharing was
Ernie.
more open.
Yes, Peter?
How many water meters do they have on the project across from CVS?
I don't know. I know I count, when I look at bedrooms or units, I count the electrical meters on the side of the building. Currently, there's 5, but they've raised the roof, and if you look at the side of the building where the electrical service comes down, there's been disruption, like they're getting ready to put another meter in there.
I count them also, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
But you don't know that they increased the amount of the water flow? Or increase the size of the pipe? Now,
No.
in a case like
No, you're
this,
right.
are we going to charge an EDU per unit? Or because it's the one pipe coming out, are we just gonna leave it go with 1 EDU for that entire project?
Mr. Chairman, that's a 4 EDU project. I believe there's 4 bedrooms, maybe 5. That particular project is existing as we have it today, is multiple EDUs. It's already a multifamily
But
presently.
the one across from CVS.
Yes, that's
where
what I'm
they're
talking
putting
about.
up
The
the
green
different
building.
buildings.
The green building.
Yeah, that could be, well,
Green building is presently a multifamily.
Yeah, but that's one building.
One building.
Yes.
But,
What about the other project?
oh, down the street?
Yes.
That one's gonna be, well, that one piece of property that had one house on it, when they came before us, they subdivided it in half, front to back, and then subdivided the back half in three, and that's where the 3 duplexes
Okay,
went.
that-
And then the
Yes,
one,
So will
Each-
there be 3?
Each apartment, if you will, or unit will be an EDU. So if that, let's say
Okay.
the High Street size.
That's all I wanted to know.
So the
but
High
we're at
Street
least
is
charging
6.
appropriately, even though it doesn't address the problem with the volume,
yeah, because we've only got one pipe going in.
right?
That particular project on High Street has 2 laterals that'll
Off
serve
of
that
High and
one.
off of Main.
Main has 1, and there's manholes and things going to address that, but the back property had 2 laterals. Neither one were being used to that big property. They subdivided it, took the 2 laterals on the back, and they're using 2 units, so it's 1 and 1. And then the front property is going to be multiple, and that's going to go to 1 through a series of manholes and increase pipe size to accommodate the flow.
It's complicated.
That it is.
It's only a sewer.
How will it work out with the tax department? Maybe we should be working closer
Well,
with
the-
them. If they send a tax bill to these
Depends on how the
people.
wouldn't it depend on how the property is subdivided?
Yeah, well, each one of them would be paying a separate tax bill then, wouldn't they?
It could be
What's
couldn't
the
it become
case?
as an association? All
Sorry?
those units collectively, they could form an association.
Well, if that's the case, all right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but usually homeowners associations are only related to subdivisions. I don't think that would be considered a subdivision, because it's one continuous building.
Yeah.
But I mean, if somebody's getting a tax bill, they should also be getting a sewer bill.
Excuse me.
Who raised it, Jim?
Are those units that are going to be sold as individual
I don't know.
ownerships or rental properties?
Yeah, I have no
Which
idea.
one?
I'm sorry. The multiple,
One on High Street
Yeah.
in Maine?
yeah.
I believe it's condominiumized. I believe there was individual purchases, as I understood it.
So then you would have an individual,
Individual
EDUs.
tax bills.
right along, and
Yes.
tax bills as well, but,
Probably form
But-
some type of association for commonalities,
Right.
common walls,
Well,
common roofs, and they might.
That's
but the
beyond,
one on,
I
but
was
the
gonna
one on
say,
Main,
it addresses the financial end of it, but it doesn't address the usage moratorium.
right.
Indeed, because if they're going as condos, they're gonna have an association, so and depending upon the number of
Oh.
mains going in, how do they split them up in terms of our billing?
Mhm.
It's interesting, it's an interesting piece for the
Right.
future.
I mean, I only use those 2 projects because you can't help but know what's going on. They're right there in your
Yeah.
face. But that's what we're facing more and more is, a piece of property that had one existing, whether it be inhabited now or not, and then it going away and, 3, 4, 5 buildings going in its place. And so that's on the water and sewer usage, that's where I see an information disconnect, where we don't
What about on
know.
the tax basis?
What's that?
What about on the tax basis?
that's outside of us.
Yeah, it's rough.
I mean, yes, you had 1 and now you have 4. Are there 4 separate tax bills?
Well, I'm sure there would be, or if it's a rental, it would be one tax bill.
Yeah.
But again,
But
I
if they're
thought,
separate buildings, that's unlikely.
Yeah, it's a little farther afield of our subject.
yeah,
Peter,
I was
please,
gonna say,
if you don't mind.
so,
It's an interesting, because of the shortage of housing, that there are multiple units going on, what originally was a single piece
Correct.
of lot, especially if it's a large lot.
yeah.
It's cost effective for someone to sell it, and that impacts our system significantly, because here we are in a moratorium, yet we have the additions going on. and I said,
We're
"Wait a
still
minute,
increasing, right?
We're trying to restore or maintain what we have, and yet these things are going up and we never see them or know about them.
Right.
So,
We're not in that loop.
may I?
Yes.
Mike, comes before planning. Who else sees it before you see it? Does it go to Buckland's office?
The projects actually come out of Ken's office
So we
and
would
go to us.
expect Buckland's office, Ken Buckland's office, who gets it first before it decides to go to planning or zoning, that somehow something is sent to the sewer commissioners to let them know something's pending.
I think that that's a valuable add to the
Because-
process, for sure.
I'm trying to think how I got a hold of the plan for the greenhouse and their 10 condos or 5 buildings or whatever it is. I don't know how I got it. Maybe
Well, I
it came. Maybe it came to me through conservation.
No, I saw it at Ken's office,
Well, I wouldn't.
but
have-
it never came before planning. That's the other kind of loophole in our
So,
system is
there's
if someone presents a project that needs zoning variance, it hops right over planning and goes right to
to
zoning.
CBA, but it would have gone through Mr. Buckland's office to go either way. Who decides whether or not it goes to zoning or planning?
I think
Well,
everything.
the circumstances. I mean, Ken doesn't make a decision which way it's gonna go. If it's a project that just needs site plan review with
Brenda, I can hear you.
no zoning
Excuse me,
variances.
Brenda, I can hear you. Yeah.
So if it's a project that just needs a site plan review with no zoning variances, then it comes to us.
Okay, who makes that decision?
The zoning bylaws.
And who reads the zoning bylaws? Who makes that decision that looking at a zoning, someone gets a plan?
The project
think
comes
everything
to
is-
us with a request for zoning.
Yeah.
It'll come, the project will end up in Ken's office.
Okay.
And part of that process is the fact that they'll be requesting a zoning variance.
So someone in the planning and zoning office makes the determine whether or not it goes to you or it goes to zoning.
Yeah, it's kind of a.
Right, based on the application.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be
It's not
Sonia.
a subjective
So,
decision.
but somewhere down the line, somebody sees both plans,
Yeah.
sees the plan.
Right, the
And so
office
somewhere
and the
down the
board.
line,
Okay.
that information has to be passed to us. And it's
maybe,
not.
Maybe not. No, it's not. But there's no requirement that it passes
Yeah,
through us.
but I
either.
think it's a
That's the
valuable
issue.
add.
The issue we're dealing with in its entirety goes through Ken's office as a filter. Sonia could look at it and say, oh, that goes here or goes there, and Ken never really sees it because bylaws suggest it goes in
Well,
that
I meant
direction.
his office,
It's
not him
always controlled by
personally.
that issue.
Right.
But that's, we're going way beyond what we were
Okay.
going to be talking about. But these are definitely, it's impacting our system, and we have to, I think, talk about filling the gap so that we are part of the process. And so that we, going forward, we don't continually
Yeah,
give these awards that are just contradicting our moratorium
right.
and the requirements that we impacted the community with the auditorium.
Jim, may I
Yeah.
ask one
Yes.
quick question? We're in the middle of doing a comprehensive wastewater management plan, which is the master plan for sewer, next 20 years. What would you recommend, or what direction?
Guy,
'Cause
speak to the mic,
You're
please.
talking a lot about multifamilies, which is great. Do you think we should factor that into the available? We look at land use, we look at potentials. Do you think we should weigh it heavily with multifamilies or single families? Or what would your recommendation as we move forward with this plan that may be beneficial long-term for sewer?
I think honestly, with the political climate of this state, they're gonna continue to push multifamily, high-density housing. I think, that's just gonna be what we're gonna look at. You know, plus the fact that land's not getting any cheaper. Developers wanna get every square ounce of production they can get out of a piece of property. So you're gonna just see more and more projects come in with multifamily housing on a smaller piece of property that had a single house on it to begin with. So I would definitely weight it toward multifamily housing.
Thank you. That's-
Yeah, the generation out there now isn't looking for a yard for the kids to play
No.
in, et cetera. No, they're
No,
not thinking of that.
and to be honest, I think you've got two ends of the spectrum. You've got the young generation that is exactly right. They don't want to mow the grass, they don't want to shovel the driveway. But then you've got the retirees who have spent the last 40 years mowing the grass and shoveling the driveway, and they've had enough. So they're looking for condominium living, which of course is high-density living.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you, sir. It was a pleasure to meet everybody.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Dan? Is Dan Butler from the redevelopment? You guys.
Sure.
Dan, what do you guys plan for our future?
Well, Mr. Chairman, well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to participate in your workshop. And Commissioners, thank you. You've got a tough job, very difficult job, it sounds like, to project and plan for the future water and sewage needs of the town. I can help you in the sense that I can tell you what we are working on at the Redevelopment Authority, and I have no doubt it will have impact on and make demands on the water and sewage capability of our town's infrastructure. The first thing I'd like to bring up is our urban renewal plan for Wareham Village. I have a draft copy of it here. We just got a new refined version of it this week that we're going to be sharing with our members on the WRA, and I'd be happy to share it with you,
Please.
Mr. Chairman. This urban renewal plan does anticipate more development in Wareham Village. In fact, that's the goal of the plan. The goal is to revitalize, reinvigorate, and renew Wareham Village. That would include more residential units and probably more commercial units. We have as our strategy in this urban renewal plan trying to incentivize private investment in Wareham Village. The investors, the developers that might be enticed to come to Wareham Village to develop probably will want to do what Mr. King just discussed, which is make maximum use of every square inch of land that they're able to develop. We're also discussing providing air rights over Merchants Way as part of that urban renewal plan that we'll be presenting to the town at a future town meeting. So I would anticipate that this urban renewal plan, once it is finalized and approved, will impact significantly on the water and sewage demands on the town of Wareham and our partners. The next thing is that this urban renewal plan includes contemplation that at some point we are going to see a resumption of commuter rail coming into Wareham Village. When that happens, that will be a game changer for Wareham in many ways. Without doubt, it will make the real estate in Wareham Village more valuable. It will make residential units something that will be sought after. It's something that the state is encouraging, as you know, towns to invest in or to encourage investment in. So transit-oriented development is another thing that we would anticipate will accompany what we envision in this urban renewal plan, which is a resumption of commuter rail to Wareham Village. Tremont Nail Factory, I think all of you are very familiar with Tremont Nail Factory. The town owns a magnificent piece of property there at Tremont Nail. We've been somewhat stymied in terms of being able to develop it for a variety of reasons, one of which is the Parker Mill Dam. But we're pretty close to having that resolved. And I bring this up because when the master developer that we have selected to develop Tremont Nail Factory is ready to break ground, there's no doubt that they envision multifamily residential units being part of their redevelopment plan. So Ken Buckland may have a better idea as to the estimate, how many units we're talking about. I know within the last month he has spoken with the master developer to get an update on their planning, but I would expect you're going to see another 20, 30, 40 residential units there at Tremont Nail Factory alone when we begin redevelopment of that property. This isn't the only urban renewal plan we're working on. We're in the process, the very early stages of kicking off an urban renewal plan for Cranberry Highway from the Red Brook Road area of Cranberry Highway out to Buttermilk Bay, basically the town line. And inevitably that's going to, if it works as we would hope, which is we want to attract developers to Cranberry Highway to redevelop blighted stretches of that property within Wareham, inevitably that's going to add to the demand on water and sewage here in the town of Wareham. And the last thing I'll mention is about a year ago, actually it was May of 2022, I had the opportunity to meet with the CEO of 80 Makepeace, Mr. Jim Kane. It was just a few weeks after 80 Makepeace made the announcement that they were suspending their plans to develop further within Wareham. And you may have seen the article in the paper, in the piece pulling back from planned development that would, in my view, have been beneficial to the town of Wareham. And there were a myriad of factors, but he zeroed in on the most important one. He told me it was the most important one, and it was sewage. And he made it pretty plain to me that until we lick the sewage problem, until we resolve the issue in terms of sewage reliability, resiliency, capacity, his firm at least saw no future in investing further in development within Wareham. I asked him if he thought that would be the case for other developers, and as I mentioned, that we were working on the urban renewal plan for Wareham Village, and he said, good luck. I'm not, he said he wasn't sanguine that very many savvy developers would choose to develop in Wareham, knowing that we have infrastructure issues that are pretty significant, and sewage being obviously a challenging one and one that you're grappling with. So that's all I have to offer in terms of big picture development issues that we in the Redevelopment Authority are addressing. And I would recommend that you get more details from Ken Buckland. He certainly is the man with his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on day to day when it comes to development and planning.
Dan, does the Redevelopment Authority have any large pieces of property that they control that they haven't developed a plan for yet?
No. The last one was the Littleton project, 16 acres over near Swift's Beach, and that's bringing another 93 units. So I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Pigeon, because that is another 93 families that will be added to the planning that you need to do to project the demand on the sewage system here in Wareham.
And to get back to the reference you made of Makepeace, we have an agreement with them to supply them some 500,000 gallons. Now that agreement you suggest that they drew back from, did they void it? Because I mean, now they were going to go under solar, but still with that agreement in place, when the solar in 20 years was being withdrawn, they would still have that document and we'd have that commitment. Did they withdraw that totally and void it?
I'm not aware of that commitment that you mentioned, Mr. Pigeon. Again, I only know of what Mr. Kane told me, which was, and I walked in very much a blank slate, trying to learn the job as I was going along regarding what we do at the Redevelopment Authority, and I was just, frankly, wanted to be educated on what it was that factored into AD Makepeace's development planning, and again, he brought it down to one very simple thing, one word: sewage.
That was the plan for the office development, right? That was not for the expansion of Rosebrook.
That was for the future development that was not being actively embarked upon at that time. It was future development, and I'm not sure how far out.
I think it was the big office.
Yeah, there's two separate developments.
Yeah, there was, but.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was Rosebrook, because that was underway.
Because we have a commitment for 10,000 gallons for an additional medical building too at Rosebrook. So that's still on the plate. It's the one they had for the big office, a big warehouse or whatever it was out in.
Yeah, we're already committed to supply that, so that would be
Yeah.
prior to the moratorium. It's one of those things that
We don't have it on the list. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I would recommend you invite Mr. Kane to come speak with you, because
Yeah.
he was, obviously, he's very knowledgeable of these things. It's his job to understand what AD Makepeace is doing and what they anticipate or contemplate doing. And I merely wanted to learn from him what would cause a company like that, like AD Makepeace, to pull back from investing in the town. And again, he brought it back to sewage.
Yeah. Well, we were talking, there's two different Rosebrooks, or one that we're talking about with the industrial park. We already have a commitment prior to the moratorium, so we have that obligation. And it's an estimated gallons, of course. But there's another very large one, I think, that he is actually referring to, that has significant development and commitment on our part. That he was, for that reason, he was not going forward with it, because we couldn't supply what he was, his needs were if he were to go forward.
but
Yeah, he mentioned to me that developers now, to develop a piece of property to any significant degree in Wareham, have to provide for their own on-site sewage treatment to, in effect, be able to get the approval to do the development and be able to feed into the sewer system.
like they did for their Plymouth project.
Yeah,
The one
he's
up by
intimately involved in
Shangri-La.
the needs of having
Yeah.
to supply their own, to have his own plant going and everything.
But
He
didn't
explained to me,
this,
he explained to me that's expensive, and
But
so that
didn't-
factors into the financial decision-making that companies like his would be doing.
didn't the selectmen commit gallons to make peace that we don't have listed on our master list?
I am not aware of anything.
Of course, I could ask the selectmen,
He can't comment.
because he can't speak as a selectman. Okay, but I thought they had committed to a lot of gallons that we don't have listed anyplace for their
That's the one,
office
that's the
development.
500,000 I was referring
The
to.
100,000 that we don't have any
That's
place on
never
our
found,
list.
that never showed up other than I have that copy of that
Yeah,
document.
okay, so you and I, okay, never mind. Okay,
Comment, Peter?
So you respect the CEO of Makepeace, of the gentleman you met with?
He seemed very knowledgeable. It was my first time ever meeting him. He seemed very knowledgeable. He was very blunt, very straightforward, answered all the questions I had. I thought I had no reason not to believe what he was telling me.
Do you mention that to these people when you're trying to sell these other two projects?
Which other two?
The one from
the river renewal
Downtown and the.
and the Tremont Nail,
and the one on Cranberry Highway. Did
Have I
these
mentioned that?
developers?
Have I mentioned that to those
Of course not.
developers or potential developers? I have not, no.
how about Tremont Nail? We have no gallons identified for Tremont Nail other than what had been on their plate, which was not much.
I imagine it probably was not much. No, to my knowledge,
Because-
we've not had discussions. I have not had discussions with the master developer at Tremont Nail Factory, and I don't know that anybody has.
Nor is he with us. Nor has he come to conservation, wrong committee, sewer committee. He's not come to us looking for gallons either.
Well, I don't know where they are in the planning process, and that's one of the reasons why Ken Buckland planned on meeting with them within the past
Okay.
several weeks. So we wanted to get an update from them on how close they were to breaking ground, basically, or beginning to plan to break ground. And I don't know where they are at this point.
No, there are probably, because I haven't seen anything for conservation, so they can't break ground until they come to Concom.
Right, and I suspect they were holding off until we had the Parker Mill Dam issue resolved.
Okay.
I think that's an issue they're interested in.
Sure.
It's rather difficult for us to be sitting here and imposing a moratorium, and the very reason you exist is to go forward with development within the community. So we're almost at opposite sides here. One, we want to preserve a resource that we have, and you want to develop the resource to expand the community. But with what we learn here and what we find, that the need of serious consideration as far as our ability to supply sewerage to the community is absolutely necessary for its growth.
I would agree with that. I don't know what your current capacity, what our town current capacity is for handling the sewage that we have today or might have in the future, but I can state confidently that, as you point out, the WRA is endeavoring to attract development to the town, hopefully revitalize portions of the town, and it will put more demand on the sewage system. That much I know for sure. I can be pretty confident in making that statement.
Well, our consultant, GHD, is responsible for preparing the comprehensive plan that every community is required to do by the federal government. But that will, it's a comprehensive wastewater management plan and affects the entire community. And they will go around, or have gone around, interviewing the various departments for their impact, what their needs are, and put the draft should be available in a couple months, and then a final copy hopefully by the end of the year or around in that time frame. And that should give us a very good idea of what we're able to do and what the community needs to be done.
And Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I can't stay for your whole workshop. I have another commitment elsewhere, but I do appreciate that you're tackling this issue head on, and it's obviously a very difficult issue for the town. From our standpoint at the WRA, we hope you are able to resolve it because we need critical infrastructure in town that's reliable, that developers can be confident will be available to them if they're going to make a difficult decision to invest significant amounts of money in our town. So we in the WRA will be relying very heavily on you being able to crack this nut.
Well, thank you. I very much thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And I think that while our discussion, we understand the necessity of thinking it forward as well as maintaining what we currently have too. It's a combination that we have to balance. And I thank you very much, Dan.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wonder if Ken is watching the clock down there. Any comments, concerns? Peter, any comments on what we've seen or heard so far?
We're at capacity. I don't know why we're wasting our time. Until we can do something about capacity, all of this is just so much talk.
Well, I think it's more of understanding the necessity that we have to go forward beyond capacity. We have to look beyond that. But you're right, preserving
Well, I
capacity.
think that's what we should be looking then.
Yeah.
Either another outfall pipe or a different, some different, something to take the outflow. We're at capacity.
I think
Whether we get the $36 million and rebuild the plant or not, we're still at capacity. I think this is,
I agree with you.
but I don't know exactly how to tell you to, I mean, I see the $36 million being step one and step two, you know, in rebuilding the plant, not as a Band-Aid by any means, but we're still at capacity.
Indeed, and I was talking with Mark, who's going to be up in a few moments, as far as what we were asking from town meeting. We're actually expanding the plant's ability to process what we have, because the clarifier that we're putting in is maybe a third again as large as the one that's currently working there, or the three that are there, and the headworks, we're putting a new one in and then going to rebuild the old one. So
I think the headworks is paramount. If you get the headworks working properly, you'll take sand out of the system, and sand out of the system is like liquid sandpaper to everything downstream.
Mm-hmm.
It just deteriorates beyond belief. I can't see that as a Band-Aid.
Yeah, I agree. You put Band-Aids on paper cuts, and we're not dealing with a paper cut.
You know, Mr. Bessie remarked that Orleans was spending $80 million to process 350,000 gallons, and we're 3 times that size. Okay, so our price is going to be $240 million. We're not asking that for now. We're asking for 36 now. Maybe if we get the 36, we do these 2 projects, the plant can limp along a little bit, pay down this debt, then go back to steps 3 and 4. And it really doesn't make any difference how much it costs. Are you going to give up indoor plumbing?
I was looking at some history, excuse me, back in 2015. That was, of course, when the commission started and all. It was difficult enough because they were brand new, and they spoke of the clarifiers and the headworks, and it was only about 12 million to do it at the time, and they opted not to do so because it was so expensive. And yet here we are with the same items at 36 million. And it just seems you cannot rationalize saving money.
Well, no, I don't want to place blame. We got a problem, and we have to fix it.
Yes.
maybe they didn't, and maybe they should have. That's past. Today is what we gotta worry about.
You're quite right. Hello, Ken. You're right on time. Please step up. And as planning and development for the community, you almost have everything going through your office that will impact us as sewer commissioners and the plant. So what do you see for our future that could impact us in our growth?
I think you look at the zoning map as one indication of what the future of the town is going to be, because that lays out where growth is possible. And the zoning bylaws say what can happen in those districts. And right now we have a new district in the downtown that could substantially increase the number of residential units around the train station and in the downtown. We have a plan on looking at in the eastern part of town with the new improvements that have been made on the highway, along the Cranberry Highway, and looking at what development may change, how development may change in that district as well too, along that corridor. We have the villages, the onset village as well, that can change in somewhat, although not as substantially. It's more of a infill and improvements over time. We have the large area in the northern part of town, the R130 zoning district, which is low density and wouldn't necessarily require sewers, given the sandy soils we have around here. I think the remainder of the town, western part of the town is pretty well developed. Although we have seen a lot of change in the industrial district as well too. Substantial growth and new uses coming in the industrial buildings that exist there. So there has been a lot of change in town, and it would be nice if the sewers were to accommodate that growth, because it's what's going to make the difference in the future of the community and what we can afford to become, and how we can support our citizenry with the kind of infrastructure and amenities that people would like to have.
They talked of the commuter rail coming down here. Now the commuter rail, if it comes down, supposedly has certain requirements if you have the station around it, and there's supposed to be a growth around the station, some kind of living conditions, et cetera.
That's right, and that's what the WV1R zoning was meant to accomplish as well too. But we have also the general commercial zoning district, which is within striking distance of the train station as well, which allows a high density residential development, 1 unit per 1,000 square feet or 40 units per acre. So you have a high density development within the commercial general and in the downtown and in onset as well too.
Now, that's what the commuter rail requires?
The commuter rail, yes, it requires high density and the 1 unit per 1,000 square feet. It meets their criteria.
So how many units are you anticipating in Wareham?
Probably 1,200.
Where?
And how about onset?
We know where.
Onset, I can't know for sure about onset. That's harder to calculate because that's mostly infill development and the conversions.
Do you have any idea where we're gonna put the storage for these 12,000 units?
Not 12,000, 1,200, I'm sorry.
1,200 units?
No, I don't.
Neither do we.
At the current time.
So if this is what the commuter rail requires, I guess we can't have the commuter rail. Not unless they want to kick in and tell us how to go about this.
That would be the reaction I would expect you'd have to have for the state. If they're requiring us to have 1,200 units, how do we accommodate them? Then it's not just the sewage, it's also the schools and the
Well,
waste and the traffic and,
So they require it, but they don't help us do it. Pretty much like a 40B.
pretty much.
Stuff it down our throat, in other words.
Ken, the 1,200 units in that geographical area, it's already pretty dense in terms of either single-family or
I'll tell you
two-family
who's
homes.
dense.
I'm wondering where the real estate would come from to house the 1,200 units.
Well, they don't necessarily require it to be centered in those locations. They say 1,200 total units overall in the total development in the community.
Well, do they have a radius?
They have a radius for the high density, but they're not for the 1,200.
A radius with the epicenter being the station?
The station, that's correct. I'm within a mile of the station.
Within a mile.
Which is pretty much
Very
all.
much.
the-
Besides all
About
water.
the only place that you could start with would be Tremont
Houseboats.
Nail Factory.
Yeah.
How about houseboats?
Houseboats?
Well, that's what they're gonna use in downtown when they try this new plan. Well, if they look at the floodplain,
Oh, indeed, everything's down there. We're a floodplain to begin with.
Depending on who we want to look
A
at.
bunch of small
Well,
islands
that's-
when it
that's-
gets,
that's not
gets
it.
good enough water.
when you go out, Mr. Buckman, seeking, is the word investors in the town or businesses to locate here, do you find it's an asset that you mentioned that we have a sanitary sewer system?
Absolutely. That's key to the development for most of the developers that come into town.
You live in Falmouth, I believe?
That's correct.
Are you on the sewer system?
No, I'm not. I wish I was.
So we definitely see that it's an asset to the town for the sewer system to be improved.
It absolutely is. We could have the kind of development we'd like to see if we had the sewage treatment to accommodate it. And if it's something that the individual developer has to do, or if they have to do a district, some kind of district treatment system, whatever it might be, that's something they'll have to look into as they consider the cost of entry into the town.
So it could be a negative.
It would be a cost, and what we hope is that it isn't a cost that keeps them out of town.
Now, down in the Cranberry Highway, what kind of developments do you anticipate or hope to encourage down there? I know there's a number of pieces of property that are either empty or rather run down.
At this point, it's just mixed-use development we're looking at. We're looking at what the market may bear and what would make the most sense for a successful development down there. What we want is to have it be successful in terms of taxes for the town, jobs, and living environment. So, in looking at all those, what kind of development would we see there? Was some of that depends on the shape of the lots that are available, how deep they are, and how much land is available for the usual parking that's required.
Yeah, because I went down there a couple of days ago and there's two enormous projects ongoing down along off right directly off Cranberry Highway. Very large apartment complex is one of them, as we know, is the,
Woodland Cove.
yes. And those, because there's one, I think it's behind where the new granite place is.
That's called Settlers Glen.
Settlers Glen.
24 units of housing there, yeah.
That's already permitted, like, isn't it, or is
That's
it?
permitted already,
Yeah.
that's right.
So that's, yeah, that's 12 duplexes, right? 12
Right, 12
duplexes.
duplexes.
10 duplexes. It's in my neighborhood, 10 duplexes.
Oh, they didn't go to rental units. I know they wanted to go to rental, I think.
They
at one
were,
time.
they actually had initially applied for home ownership, but they changed it to rental.
Yeah, so it's all rentals now?
It's all rental now.
Which means now we can count it totally on our SHI list because they're rentals.
That's right.
Not all of them are affordable. I think 2 are, but at least that puts it all on our SHI.
That's correct. It's all counted towards our 10%.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you have any comments, questions?
Basically, well, everything I've heard today tells us that the biggest thing that we need to do is get expulsion and repair the plant. That's basically what it boils down to. If the plant's not working well, we're in trouble. If we don't have a way to increase our expulsion, we're in trouble even if the plant does work well.
Peter, any other comments you
That's the
want to
bottom
make?
line.
I think I've made my piece.
Sandy?
I'm fine. So I do have a question. Mr. Buckland, what do you expect to happen to the northern part of the town now that we're not going to have a horse track? How do you expect that land to be developed? Any idea?
In accordance with the zoning that's in place right now, which would be low-density residential.
So individual homes,
Yes,
all in their own septic system.
that's correct.
What do you know about the project going on next to the elementary school?
Not much.
I understand they're do their own septic system.
A combined septic system for all the lots there?
I don't know, I'm asking, because they haven't come to us to be connected to sewer. I was just wondering if you had heard anything.
No, they haven't approached me about any kind of development on those properties yet.
Okay, thank you.
Guy, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, it's, everything's been said. If we don't get a discharge, then to Peter's point,
No.
it's end game.
Is there anything else in the wings that isn't on paper yet?
There is interest in the, in development in town. There are developers who would like to enter into this market area. And they're up against the sewer moratorium. So it's going to make a difference to the future of the town if we can get the capacity built back into the plant.
And with 60% of the community is already sewered, and of course it's already primarily down near waterfront. Everybody wanted to live near the water. And the other areas of our community, geographically, they're not close to any particular highways where we already have pipes and we can do short-term reaching out to them. I think the Board of Health has a lot of interest in that. I think we'll hear from Patrick in a little while. But it seems so far, as Jim has outlined, we need to focus on the plant, make sure it runs right, and is able to be expanded to cope with the necessary growth. If we want to be a thriving community, that's what we have to look to. Anything else you'd like to add, Ken?
No, I guess I've said my piece.
Thank you.
You got the tough choices now on your own.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bernie, can I ask you how you came up with that 60%?
It's just a figure I see around, batted around and.
Well, we have 20,000 residents, and we have 6,000 EDUs.
As I said, I just saw it in print.
Doesn't
and,
sound like
I
60%.
didn't know how to verify it or anything. I just thought whoever wrote it would have known.
Well, no, I was just curious as to where you got it.
It's nothing that I've verified myself or
I think
seen,
it's
so.
area, probably not specific individuals, probably area. That's what I've been told.
It's in square footage, 60% of the town.
Yeah, the area-
Of Wareham is
Yeah,
Seward.
6% of Wareham is Seward.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Someone has told you, Guy?
Yes, that's rumors. I keep my ears open
Who's
to
in
rumors.
charge?
Well, the rumors are really what we go by, so I usually don't want to make a decision until I get all the rumors.
Okay, question. How many miles of pipe do we have?
Well, the rumor says that we have 90 miles, 60, about 60 to 70, which is gravity, 20 is force mains.
So that's
We're up to 90.
90 miles of sewer line. How many miles of streets do we have?
I have no idea.
230, 240 miles of street?
It's like 210.
But we
Around
usually
that, around that.
we usually talk of gravity because that's, but anyways, that's what that is.
Yeah, the mileage came up when they asked about, the maintenance department were doing a mile a year.
And 54 pump stations?
We have 45 pump stations.
45.
Yes,
45.
3,000
Lexi.
3,000 manholes.
It's all right,
Okay,
Peter, my hearing aids are in the shop, so I mean,
next,
yes.
next.
Next, Patrick, welcome.
Perfect timing. I passed
It
Yes.
is.
the previous presenter on the stairs. It worked out.
Patrick McDonald from the Board of Health.
Ladies, gentlemen, how are you?
Give us an idea of where we're needed and why.
Everywhere. Every square mile would be my.
Okay, step up to the mic, please. Yeah. You're not in your office now, you know.
There we go. Ultimately, the DEP would like to see the entire town sewer. That's their goal. As some of you may know,
Excuse me, Brenda, Jim, would you please?
Think,
some of you might know this already, but a recent set of regulations was passed by the DEP that they're implementing down Cape with nitrogen reduction septic systems. So what they had done is a study based on population density and the amount of nitrogen that we're seeing in our ocean areas. And so they determined that the Cape was where they were going to start this endeavor. Ultimately, there was quite a bit of pushback for the other phases. And lucky for us, we were pushed back into phase 2. So phase 1 has been implemented. They passed the regulations. They're working with the Cape Towns right now to do that. And as Guy knows, basically our options are to sewer our entire town and take on all that discharge, or we apply for groundwater discharge permits and take on the liability and compliance for every private septic system that's within our permitted area, which would be the town. I've seen the map that they have designated for Wareham, and currently in the phase 2 map, the entire Glen Charlie section is currently what they have highlighted. So basically from Cranberry Highway all the way up through the neighborhoods to the tip of Plymouth, basically follows the water there. There are some weird sections that they've cut out, which include large neighborhoods, which I found odd. But I think that's just the way that.
you mean up to Shangri-La?
Yep, up
Yeah.
in the Shangri-La area, yep. So ultimately, that would be a major goal would be to get that area sewered ahead of time. It would save us time, headaches, and dealing with the DEP, honestly, having to fight them. On top of that, I mentioned this to Mr. Pigeon on the phone. One thing that I would like to see if that was a goal of the board would be to look into doing a package plant in that area. And the only reason I have concerns for taking all that water away from the area is that we have the Wareham wellheads up there, Wareham Water. And so having the package plant and doing a ground discharge back into the area would still provide the recharge to those wellheads that they're getting now from the septic. So basically in the cycle of life, obviously everybody uses water for different things, whether it's laundry or dishes or you're consuming it, whatever it is. It all makes its way back through your septic system or somebody's. And, you know, we recharge our wellheads and our aquifers with that water. So I would just be hesitant to take it all back and send it back to the plant where we discharge it to the river versus doing a ground discharge in that area and still providing recharge to those wellheads. Another area that I think is less important, but somewhere on the horizon is finishing out towards the end of Great Neck and getting out that way. Just because it's another populated area where we have water surrounding our homes down that way. There are a good number of septics that have been redone in both of those areas, including Glen Charlie. And due to the regulations that we have at the Board of Health, we are mandating nitrogen-reducing septic systems based on certain setbacks, but there are quite a few places that just don't fall into that setback that we have. So, not that they skirt the regulation, but they're not required to install those nitrogen-reducing septic systems, which is, if you're not sewering it, that's the ultimate goal of the DEP. It's one or the other. And ultimately, we're all in it for the same end goal, which is improved water quality, whether that's drinking water or our ocean water. Either way, removing the nitrogen and being able to reduce our impact on the oceans and our fresh water is the end goal. So, I think those are two major areas. The rest of the areas that have already been done would have been major. I think in hindsight, or good planning, however you want to look at it, the areas with the major need were done up front, which was great. And I think that's reduced a lot of our issues that we could have had, and then just maintaining those going forward.
What about the property south of 28 where the old drive-in used to be? And the mobile home parks? You know where I mean by the old drive-in?
I've had that landmark.
I was wondering if you knew where the drive-in was.
Well,
and it's come enough times that I've asked, where was the old drive-in? So yes,
that's a lot of development in there, right on the water.
there is quite a bit of development that way as well. So my concerns are just the heavy congested neighborhood areas, just because there's a lot more discharge on a regular basis from those areas. And I'm less worried about future development right now, where we have all these septic systems that exist and either don't fall under the current regulations for the Board of Health, so they're getting just standard Title V systems, or they're still there and they've been on the Glen Charlie Pond for the last 60 years on the same single cesspool that's never going to fail because it's a massive hole in the ground that somebody did a really good job laying the masonry for, and it will probably never fail. We'll never see that septic system come to us unless we have.
How about the mobile home parks? That's a lot of concentration.
We don't. The only ones that we have that are on their own septics are out in the West Wareham area. We have Gray Hill Estates, which they're converting.
Yep, they're coming into us, yeah.
Very slowly. And then after that is Royal Crest.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other one I believe left
It's off of
is
Charlotte Furnace. There's a mobile,
Siesta Village. Yep.
yeah.
Those areas I'm not super concerned about for myself with focusing on protecting our waters and cleaning everything up. There is the Garden Homes East Park.
I think it's north, maybe.
One of those, they're in all directions, of course. There's only one Garden Homes Park that isn't sewered, I believe.
Garden Homes North, I believe it is.
Yeah, that would
The
be
highway concrete.
by highway concrete, exactly.
Yep.
Yep. And then I guess also that little stretch in the middle of Cranberry Highway that doesn't have sewer would be something to think of if we ever do the dam project. The waterway dam, not. But that's, those would be the big areas, and I put some thought into it, and I think, like I said, the major concerns would be the Glen Charlie area, and then with that, focusing on a package plan. Not that there's a ton of space for it up there, but there are clever ways to put them in, and allowing us to keep that groundwater recharge and not put the Wareham wells at risk. Not that I think there would be a huge risk, but continuing to provide that recharge would be a huge benefit.
Are there any particular areas where you have an increased amount of sewage pumping or septic pumping?
It's pretty sporadic, to be honest. A lot of the seasonal homes we don't see very often in those congested areas, just because they have one of those forever lasting man-made cesspools, and they're used very seldomly. So a lot of the times they don't even get filled to capacity to a point where they're going to be worried about pumping it. They come down for 2 or 3 months in the summertime, and they barely use enough water to fill it. And by the time they come back next year, it's already It's already empty its way all the way down. Same with a lot of, even if it's a regular septic system, if there's not enough regular use in the system, it's gonna leach out on its own, whether you're using it heavily or not, just based on the amount of time you give it in between use. And so areas like that, Swiss Beach, we're already taken care of. Out on like the Pinehurst Point, that area is already taken care of. A lot of those areas were sewered in the beginning and early on, which was awesome. Even the Caribbean City area, a lot of that's already covered. There's still a stretch of Caribbean City we can finish out at some point, all the way to the end. But again, a good majority of the congested Caribbean City area is already on sewer, so that's a huge benefit to us. That's the big ones. I think
How many
that would be the big battle.
How many cesspools do you think we still have in town?
That would be hard to say, because on top of them lasting forever, they're also built at a time when Title V was very lax and hand-drawn plants on napkins were fine, and we didn't keep those plants.
So the only chance is getting rid of if they sell the property and have to upgrade.
Correct. And we've caught a few recently because there is no loophole to paying cash and not having a Title V inspection. I've been spreading that word for the last 8 years as much as I can.
So there's no way around it.
No way around it. It's just a matter of if you get caught. We will try to catch it.
Now, have you had any request for using a Title V as opposed to hooking up in sewer?
I've had a few recently. I have been in the position to say that it is not viable just due to the fact that installing a brand new Title V septic system in the hopes of abandoning it, one, is not cost effective and lead to potential future issues, whether that's not being able to pay a hookup fee, not being willing to hook up to the sewer after that fact. And it's a bit of a play on words, but the way the Title V is written, that if sewer is provided, then you are to connect. Sewer is provided in a lot of these areas, it's just that we don't have the capacity to provide it right now. They can hook up, they just can't use it. So I think.
So what happens in that situation? I'm looking at those 4 lots next to the elementary school. They've been told they cannot hook up because we don't have a moratorium, and I've been told that they're going to put in their own Title V.
We have a few lots on Acorn Ave up by the golf course as well. They're looking to finish developing those, and I don't think it's.
Oh, the ones off of Lydia Island?
They're on it. No, yes, up in that area.
Okay,
Acorn Ave, off of Locust. You go down Locust, up behind.
okay. So there,
Heights.
there are several who are saying, hey, you can't take us and we're going to do our own.
Right. After having conversations with many of these people, they usually understand what I'm getting to. The point is, you can pay the $50,000+ right now if you're really interested, but the moment that sewer capacity is provided, you will be getting a letter from us, and you will be hooking up to sewer. And if there is even an attempt to install the system in lieu of sewer, I imagine my board and myself as well are going to want some sort of signed agreement that as soon as capacity is available, they'll be hooking up. Not interested in pushing that fight down the road, just with the way that it has been with different neighborhood. Shoot, it'll come to me in a minute. Parkwood. There were some homes in Parkwood that were allowed to forego hooking up because they had recent septic systems installed. That was a battle.
Because I thought they only had 5 years.
Really 2. Title V allows you 2 years from a failed septic system.
There's no, yeah.
There's not really a period that says once sewer comes by, you have to hook up at a certain point.
Yeah, we have a long list of homes that have not hooked up into sewer, going all the way back to Rose Point and Briarwood and Parkwood and Pinehurst and the newer ones, Oakdale. So we have a list we're watching.
They'll come eventually.
There are homes that have not hooked into sewer.
And unfortunately, a lot of those were approved with no stipulations at the time to hook up once it was provided, once sewer was truly
Well,
provided.
maybe that's why they don't pick up our registered letters.
Probably. They're probably aware of what they need to do, but they know if they ignore it long enough, they probably won't have to. I think one of the last ones from Parkwood was sorted out shortly before I started here, probably 2010. Sewer has been there for quite a while.
So, yeah, because I know we just approved a building going up in Parkwood, and it had a stub, and it has to connect.
Yep.
It haven't come before. But because they had a stub, they're already approved for connection. Because we accommodate that number in our capacity. So a stub equals, hey, you can connect if a stub exists, but
Yeah, I don't think that's a battle we want to fight in the near future or in the distant future, whether that's a couple months or a couple years, trying to fight somebody to remove $50,000 worth of investment that they just put in the
Yeah.
ground
Big bucks.
and then pay a hookup fee and install it to tie them in. I think
because they're paying the betterment. Just because it went by the house and there's a stub, they're paying the betterment.
correct.
Yeah,
And their Title V costs.
and the time, yeah.
Yeah, and if it's in one of those nitrogen sensitive areas, they're paying well over 50 grand, and they're paying yearly for operation and maintenance. They're paying an electric bill for the blower, water bill sometimes if they need to provide additional water to try to maintain those parameters that we set. So it just doesn't seem in their best interest or our best interest to allow septics to go in lieu of sewer capacity at this time, just with the money involved, to be honest.
Jimmy, do you have any comments?
Reiterating what I've said before.
Peter?
I have a couple of questions. It's not
Go ahead.
directly this. It's got to do with your beach testing.
Yep.
Is there, do you, when you test any particular beach, do you test it at a particular time, or do you know what the time is or what the tide conditions are?
So the way that the state has the sampling set up, they determine the locations, so they determine where we sample on the beach, which beach is which beach, and what it's called, so on and so forth. We sample every Tuesday. We start sampling at the same time, and we work our way through it. So generally
But
speaking, it's
do you keep a record of this?
Yep.
Is it accessible online someplace? What I'm getting at, Patrick, is Swift's Neck is closed.
Yep.
I can't understand how we can have a coli on Swift's Neck, not on Hamilton, not on Pinehurst, not on Swift's Beach. And I'm trying to figure out what the tide's doing or what the river's doing at the same time. And I don't want to take up too much time now. That's why I wanted to ask you if it was accessible and I could, possibly figure this out.
we're currently dealing with the lab that has had a majority of its staff retire. And the new staff is very slow, and they're very lax with posting our beach water stuff. We've noticed recently that a lot of the postings of our results are very slow and behind, like weeks behind, for what you can see online. We have access to them. We can get you those directly.
No, I was wondering if there was some place that I could take a look at some of
Yeah, so
these
you
and try
can
to
go,
find some correlation.
You can go to the Barnstable County Health and Environment webpage and go to their beach water testing site. They have, there's a little page there that you can scroll through and you can sort it by Wareham and you can see that. I will say that with our Swift's Neck closure, even the Swift's Beach closure earlier in the summer, there is a process that the state uses to try to determine almost like a long-term water quality, and they do this by taking a 5-sample average, and they call it a geomean. And the issue that we've run into is for the last 4 samples we took at Swift's Neck, they pass a single count sampling. So the bacteria levels in a single count is within the single count limit. But the problem is that we had one bad sample that we took on a Tuesday right before or right after a rainstorm that was really, really high. So that was in the 12 to 1500 rating, and the rest of these are coming in below 50, but between 30 and 40.
That's sort of what I was trying to figure out is, if you're saying it's right after a rainstorm, why is it E. coli that's the problem?
So what happens in a lot of these areas like Swift Beach and Briarwood's unique in itself, but you have a lot of runoff from the heavy rain, and everything kind of pushes down towards the beach. So all your
Yes, but it's all
fertilizer-
sewered.
But I mean, so you got all your fertilizer from lawns, so you have all your pet waste that's
But I was under the impression E. coli is strictly human waste.
warm-blooded animals. So a lot of your birds, seagulls.
So it's not just human.
Nope, not just human waste. No.
Thank you, thank you. That kind of clears up a lot.
Do you remember when they used to, we had all those swans on Merchant's Way, and the feeding grain store was told by Board of Health, you cannot sell cracked corn because we don't want you feeding the swans and polluting our water, because the waterfowl is a big contributor to the pollution in the area. For those that remember the feeding grain store.
We don't have a lot of ducks on Swift's Neck.
No, but you have quite a few people that love to let their
Dogs run.
I went to pull the signs the July 4th weekend, and there was a gentleman swimming with his dog in the water while I was taking the signs out. So it's
Okay.
that's a heavy contributor in itself.
Well, see, that's what I couldn't figure out. I mean, like if you took Briarwood, where it's closed, and yet all of Briarwood is sewered and all of Rose Point is sewered, so it had to be coming from further up the river is the way I looked at it. But now that I understand it differently,
I think our issue with Briarwood is the unique shape at which the beach actually curls back around on itself, and it cuts itself off to
So it doesn't flow well, it doesn't wash itself, it doesn't,
move the sample site a million times. And per the state's request, we put it back to where they've determined it, and it's on the inside of the horseshoe, basically.
well, you
that
should
whole area has always had problems.
sample it where it's
Yeah.
where you get the worst samples, and keep doing it at the same time.
Well, I guess the message is keep your dogs off the beach.
Trying to stress that.
And, well, I think if you close the recreational swimming long enough, people will say, hey, because you don't want to go out there and talk to somebody who's walking his dog because you don't know how they'll react to it. But if those people are walking their dogs and then they can't go swimming, they're contributing to it.
You get upset either way. I guess that's really
Yes, I mean, that's why
approach them.
yeah, you don't approach them. Yep. Yeah.
Anything else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Now, Mark Drenville, our very patient consultant who's been sitting here all day. Yes, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I was going to hand this out, and I'm not prepared to present it today, but we are, as you know, we're doing a comprehensive wastewater management plan for the town, and maybe about a month or so ago, we had representatives from various committees and boards from the town, and we did do a presentation of kind of a status report on where things stand with the project. And a lot of the things you've heard today, as well as some answers to questions, are in here. So if I could just pass this out. And I will tell you just before I pass it out, my colleague is not here with me, so you may ask me questions I can't answer today, but I would like to have an opportunity to come back and maybe perhaps
We
do a
know Sarah's the
presentation.
brains of the operation.
We already understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I was going to do is just quickly walk you through this and just point out some things that are in here that have, and maybe perhaps some of the things that came up today. So first of all, the first part of the comprehensive plan is what's called a needs assessment. So as part of the needs assessment, we're looking at things like, what are your wastewater needs? And ultimately trying to come up with how much flow needs to be managed within the town, how much wastewater flow needs to be managed. And in order to do that, we have to look at a number of different things: population growth, economic development, housing needs, environmental needs, a lot of the things that you've heard from previous speakers. So if you allow me to just walk through this, and I'm going to skip some parts of this, but if you could see slide 7, and I'm just going to quickly kind of walk through some things. It's a photograph of the plant. Looks like this.
Yep.
It's called Existing and Committed Centralized Wastewater Flow. So I'm going to just start here, and I'll just talk through what's included in this needs assessment. So the first part of this is determining how much flow is going to the plant right now. So that's our base, the base portion of the study. Also included in this is what commitments the town has made to other entities. So you have an existing flow, and you have other flow that you've committed that hasn't come into the plant yet. So that's kind of our baseline that we start with. If you go to the next slide, and I'm going to go through these quickly today, just given the time frame. These are double-sided. So the next one is identified public health needs. So in those figures, you see a bunch of different areas that have come up in discussion today, including Shangri-La, as well as some areas of town that were planned to be sewered in the previous CWMP that were not, and we're carrying those forward to this project. That's Agawam Beach and Mayflower Ridge. So there's a number of areas that were identified previously or currently as potential public health needs. If you go to the next slide, you'll see population projections. We're including that as part of, this is a 20-year projection, in making sure we include the projected growth within the town as part of the wastewater needs. If you go to the next slide, housing needs, these are identified housing needs within the town based on various documents. I heard at least one of these mentioned earlier, the downtown village redevelopment zoning. So there's a number of different things that we considered as part of this. The next slide is economic needs, and the economic needs goes into a couple different slides. If you go to the next slide, it's projected economic needs, and you can see a couple areas of the town identified in that particular slide from the Wareham master plan. If you go to the next slide, you can see various planned proposed developments, including the Exit 21 office, industrial parks, the Kendrick Road Industrial Park, Route 6 commercial strip. If you go to the next slide, it's the MBTA discussion that you heard earlier that we've put some consideration into with regard to housing needs that may come into play with that. I apologize for going fast. I'm just trying to really just show you that, a lot of the things that we've talked about or that you've heard are, we've met with the town and have, put some consideration into this. The next slide talks about environmental needs. So in a nutshell, what the environmental needs are in the town, the Wareham River watershed, which is the central part of the town, is sending too much nitrogen into Buzzards Bay. And in order to address that, one way to address that would be to sewer more areas of town, portions of town that are currently on septic systems. So some of that could be addressed with some of the public health needs that were identified earlier, but there could be some additional sewering that's required in order to meet the nitrogen target that has been set by the state for the Wareham River.
But that can come up way upriver, not just Wareham.
It could be from, coming from out.
Plymouth.
Could be.
Or Carver. Well, Carver hasn't done a lot of development, but it could be outside created outside the land boundary of the town of Wareham, and it's just flowing down through us into Buzzards Bay.
So what we're trying to do is combine public health needs also with environmental needs. So if you have public health needs that warrant sewering because of small lots or failing septic systems, that can help with regard to excessive nitrogen. So
that's like the problem we have currently with the river, where there is a lot of nitrogen sources prior to And as a result, we're limited because of it.
So that is, but that is correct. I mean, you could be getting some nitrogen from way upstream, but we're trying to take advantage of public health issues in densely developed areas, and you could get two benefits from it.
Can we come back to that, Bernie?
Go ahead.
Okay.
So you have two other watersheds in the town, Weweantic and Buttermilk Bay. Nitrogen targets have not yet been set for those, and so we have included a very small. We've included an estimated amount of flow that might need to be managed in order to address those targets, but the state has not developed full reports for those yet. Okay. But the Wareham River watershed, that has been developed, and there's a draft target that's been developed. So if you flip beyond the environmental needs, there's a slide called undesignated growth flow allowance. We have also included, so we can take a look at all the known needs for housing, for population growth, for environmental needs. There's always something that's going to happen that you can't predict, and so we have an allowance for what's called undesignated growth. So as part of the flow projections, we are including, a buffer for some additional growth that none of us know about right now. And if you go to the next slide after that, there's planning period projected wastewater flows. So everything that I just mentioned kind of rolls up into a total flow. For here, we have 3.5 million gallons per day. If you then add the Buttermilk Bay and the Weweantic area, we estimate those to be 0.5 MGD of flow. So if you wrap those all up together, you get a total of 4 million gallons per day of flow for the known needs, as well as, like I said, the unallocated growth potential too. So. If you flip the last part of this presentation touched on effluent disposal. So right now, as was mentioned earlier, you are capped at 1.5, close to 1. A little bit over 1.5 MGD. It's a little bit more specific, but you are capped with that flow to go to the river. We've been exploring. The town has explored an outfall, and we've been exploring 3 other options. There was an outfall to the canal that was explored some time ago. We have also explored the potential for an outfall that wouldn't go as far as the canal, but would actually come off of the coast of Wareham. We've determined that there are no viable spots for that to happen. So as far as outfalls go, the most practical option would be to go to the canal. We're also exploring 2 other options. One of them would be to increase the flow to the river. We have had discussions with EPA and with DEP about increasing the flow to the river. They did provide a roadmap for us. One of the keys would be to complete the CWMP, and then we can engage EPA and DEP. But they did provide a roadmap to us to increase the flow. However, the easiest potential way of increasing the flow would potentially be to do groundwater disposal. That is, you treat at the wastewater treatment facility and then identify sites within the town and dispose of the groundwater. Dispose of the treated wastewater to the ground surface, which then goes into the groundwater, and that is a process that's regulated by the state. Your discharge to the river is regulated by EPA, so it's a slightly different entity that's involved. So there are multiple options that are available. There's still work to be done, but there are multiple options. So I've kind of quickly summarized the last bunch of slides and what I just said. So.
The picture you show here, treated effluent discharge options. Where is that location?
That's the
Where did Jimmy?
sand.
Yes.
That's a sand bed that's in the town of Falmouth.
Where?
So it's at their treatment facility site.
Oh,
It's on Blacksmith Shop Road. It's,
About how many acres would one require for a groundwater discharge, let's say for a plant our size?
I mean, this is several acres. I forget the exact size, but
it's where, Blackmore Pond?
it's Blacksmith Shop Road. So it's
Not in Wareham.
No, it's
It's in Falmouth.
No, this is in Falmouth.
Oh,
I don't think Peter heard that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is in Falmouth. I'm sorry. Sorry.
thank you.
Well, we have all that sandy land in north part of Wareham. And it's not near the river.
So there are several sites that we're looking at. Not every site will work. There are reasons why you can't use a site that includes, there might be wetlands there, perhaps endangered species. Discharge to a site that's in a Zone 2 drinking water supply is discouraged. So there's things that, you can't go to any sites, but we have identified several sites within the town, and we're starting to do some field work to check out their viability.
Yeah, because any site in town, we'd come up against the fact that we're our own, we're sitting on our aquifer. And we have wells up in the Glen Charlie area and the like.
Yeah, so although the groundwater serves as a drinking water source in many areas, not all of the groundwater table is regulated as a drinking water source. Okay, so these are mapped areas that we all have access to, and we can identify sites that don't have that risk of being in a drinking water source.
It's convincing those that it's not at risk.
I will say that this is very common in the area. I mean, nearly every town that has a treatment facility, every town that has a treatment facility on the Cape and the islands, that's how they discharge their wastewater, is by a sand bed.
Just because they sit right next to the ocean doesn't mean they got to use it.
Well, ocean outfalls until recently were outlawed. So it's a very recent allowance of being able to do ocean.
That's why that's why we're looking at using the outfall from the school as our source of an outfall, as opposed to creating a new one. We use the one that Mass Maritime has already, so we're not putting anything new in there, just increasing the volume. But that's why we were looking at Mass Maritime.
Yes, I was involved in the initiation of that committee, coincidentally, only because I was on finance at the time.
So,
that was a very high-level overview. I skipped a lot of details just to give you kind of a taste of it, but I'd like to have an opportunity to come back and present this in more detail with my colleagues.
Well, you essentially reiterated what every speaker had presented to us. Individually, now collectively, you placed it in here to say that, oh yes, everyone has the same problem, everyone has the same needs, and it's incumbent on us to try and satisfy those needs for the sake of the community.
Yeah. Yes.
Jimmy, you have any questions or concerns?
Basically, it's the same thing, simplistic terms, repair what's broken and find a way to discharge more.
Peter, that's kind of along what you had said initially.
Excuse me?
Jimmy had said just what you said initially when we started out. We need new outfall.
But the thing that I'm noticing here is on the ocean outfall screening evaluation, I suggested that we go into the canal but stay in Wareham with our piping, so we didn't have to deal with any of the other municipalities. Has that been looked at?
We did look at that, and
so we'd go out Great Neck?
Yeah, so we did look at that, and There are technical issues with that. The velocity in the area is too slow.
It's the same canal.
Different velocity.
So the ability to go into the actual canal is limited there. So we have to go very close to it and right up near it, and that the velocities are too low based on the model.
Why are you staying on the inside of the barrier, of the dike?
It's actually on the outside.
Excuse me?
It's actually on the outside.
Yeah,
Woods
yeah.
Hole
Then
was-
you're in the canal.
Yeah, there's two issues with the canal according to Woods Hole. One is you cannot go into the actual canal because it's navigable. You had to be on the outskirts between the dike and the canal, and there's not enough flow to flush it out because we worry about it going into the bays.
So the only reason that we were going to go to Mass Maritime is because it existed?
No, because it had the area along the Mass Maritime state-owned property was an area that we could put the fuses that would bleed it into the canal and take it down, and plus the
And
canal.
we can't do that further
Well,
down.
again, we can. However, the canal both ways would take it beyond the areas that impact the I'm going to call them bay areas. And if it entered up by the Mass Maritime, it would take it out into the canal proper, out to the Buzzards Bay, reverse it to the Cape Cod Bay, where if we took the outfall up by the dike, we would not get that influence. It would go back into, I'm going to say, Marion, back into parts of Wareham, back into parts of Onset, and that would detrimental. We couldn't do it. And you don't have enough flow or velocity to take it, shoot it down off into the...
The actual canal is a narrower area than once you're out and into, you know,
Show it to 'em.
outside in the Wareham area, and the velocities are just they're not high enough.
It's,
We couldn't put a bubbler system like they did with the MWRA.
no, we can't. A diffuser system, we cannot. The diffuser system would work along the canal because there's a cove, and that's where we put the bubbler system or the diffuser system. It would enter the canal and take off, and that was the purpose of that particular spot. And it's existing and it's been proved. The only difference now is that they have higher nitrogen, but yeah, it's an existing. They've shown where it flows. And all that data has been done, the flow, I guess they call it the flow chart by, it was Woods Hole did both tests. And they're the directors of this to make sure that we weren't giving you bad information. But yeah, and I think we got the results if you like. I believe we can get the results of the test.
I think with that study, it was very specific as to where it would be discharged into the canal.
Yeah, you may not be able to see it in your copy, but I
was
mean,
looking for the photo.
we do have very specific locations that were identified and that were modeled. So
It's crazy.
Is the bottom line then, our best chance for increased outflow is to find an area to dump it in on the ground discharge?
So DEP has encouraged us to do that. That's what they have encouraged us to do. Although EPA did outline a process by which we could increase flow to the river, I think that's going to take a while to happen. So I think the fastest way is to get it in the ground.
Thank you.
Guy, the acreage we have at the location down to the right, beyond, on the same side as the wood chips piles are on, I think you mentioned that couldn't be used for like an outfall because it was designated for something else?
That is a reclaimed lined landfill. And the DEP will not allow us to use it or to destroy it. So virtually it's unusable. We're going to put the solar there because it's a lined landfill.
Yeah.
There's a lot of credits for that type of project, but there's nothing we can do with that land. I mean,
Not
we
usable for that, okay.
we can, because they have a theory that we may need that landfill one day. It was a sludge landfill. And they have a theory that we would need it one day for sludge disposal, so they didn't want us to touch it. Time changes, opinions change, and it may be worth readdressing. But when we addressed it, they said absolutely not. And we had to address it for the solar field because we couldn't penetrate. We had to put a bunch of concrete to stabilize it or to anchor it without destroying the landfill. So that that was when we found that out. We could ask the question again, because it's already there, you know, but we'd have to rip up
Yeah.
the membranes and the plumbing underneath and all that to probably use it as sand beds. And then you have the issue with the biggest problem, we get challenged by Buzzards Bay and the state and others because of the proximity to the river. So they're saying, yeah, you can put it in the land, but it's really going right to the river because there'd be no attenuation, the whole gamut. So if we stay close to that river, they're going to treat it like we're going right to the river.
Right.
And that's the process that
Which
we're
is
in now.
why they were against us using the land on, off of Minot, because it was too close to the river and it would discharge that water back into Agawam River.
Yes, so that's a tough.
So we would,
But they would likely be amenable to it if the town is going to be reducing nitrogen, because that's one of their concerns, is the
And that
nitrogen's
was
impacting
Yeah,
sewering.
putting it
by
back
sewering.
into the ground, yeah. That thing into the groundwater, wherever we choose to do it in town, we have to pipe it.
We have to pipe it, or I mean, there is a portion on the WPCF site that could potentially be used. It's just it's kind of an indirect discharge to the river, so that's something, you know, would probably be a negotiation with Buzzards Bay in order to get that permit. But yeah, again, if the town were to sewer to reduce nitrogen, that's going to help Buzzards Bay. So I think they would be receptive to that.
Well, when you consider the whole town is slightly above sea level, it all flows down to the water anyway.
And decentralization, Bernie, as Patrick mentioned, we looked at, you know, collaborations up in the Shangri-La area or doing something on our own, West Wareham, whatever. So all his point is, if you're going to sewer and you can find smaller groundwater discharges and do portions of Shangri-La, what have you, to go to the groundwater, that's a doable feat also. So we can look at that whole concept too. So they're looking at that as part of the comprehensive plan. Can we do decentralization? And if we can, where can we do it to force some sewage? So yeah, that's all in the planning stage, or, you know, the investigation stage at this point.
It sounds like we have just being cynical in some levels, a better option in that regard than going to the canal.
Well, the canal is regulated by the EPA, as Mark had said. It's a time-consuming. Government doesn't work fast. We like committees and recommittees and rethinking and restudy. That's what we do best. So it's a time-consuming issue. Where the state regulates groundwater discharge, they have some proven, you know, methods in. There's some concerns that they get pushed back from EPA, but they can fast track it a little bit quicker than the EPA can. And so it gives you, you know, a time. We're at a time crunch, and I think we're losing sight of that. We have a time crunch. So, you know, groundwater gives us that ability to meet that time crunch. And so it may be a good beginning, and maybe get partial, maybe $500,000 or $1 million or whatever, and then you can lay into, if you're going to do a discharge to an outfall through an ocean sanctuary. But yeah, so the groundwater is, and the DEP told us that. We met and they said, you know, this is probably the best option because you have a time constraint. You need capacity yesterday, so this may be the better avenue.
In fact, it was after the meeting that we had where this was presented to the town that DEP and met with Guy and myself after the meeting, and they said, geez, after hearing these options, we would encourage you to pursue groundwater discharge. We think
Yes,
that's the
most
fastest
definitely.
way you can get additional capacity.
Anything else, Peter?
All set.
Jim?
I just have one question on the groundwater discharge. Is there a limited lifespan for the usage of an area for groundwater discharge?
Not, I would say not necessarily for the groundwater. There's somewhat of a lifespan of the sand. There could be. You may have to replace that, but we're talking 20 plus years. I mean, I've seen
So basically,
sand.
just like doing a study for 20 years.
I'm sorry?
Just like doing a study for 20 years. You know my feeling on that.
Oh, it's long. Barnstable has had sand and beds for well over 20 years. I mean, they've been.
I do have a question.
Okay, no, I was
sorry.
just curious, I didn't know.
You mentioned, Jimmy alluded to it, gonna have to replace the sand. Okay, what do we do with it? You can't get rid of sludge.
Well, it's it's not hazardous, if you will, and there's things to do with it. And the sand just plugs, and you get, particles, and, eventually it plugs it. And there's ways in the beginning you till it, and you do many, many things for maintaining it. But eventually, it just doesn't leach anymore. And you can't have ponding, so once it begins to pond, then you gotta replace. And that's it, and then you just get rid of it. I mean, it's not hazardous.
Peter?
Were you here 2 or 3 meetings ago when the people were here about the wood chips?
I was not.
Well, do I remember that correctly, that running the discharge through the wood chips took out the nitrogen?
Much of it, I believe.
That's correct. You're
Yes.
absolutely
But
correct.
then the water that came out.
Just a second.
Sorry.
Just a second, please. It took out the nitrogen. So if we did that on top of the sand for the outfall, would that make the ground discharge last longer?
So if you're doing that to meet a permit, you need to be able to sample. So we've explored that in other communities, and if you're using that to actually meet your nitrogen permit, there's no way to sample it. You follow what I'm saying? Like the wood chips would sit on the sand, and then the water would go through those and then into the ground.
See, now, because it would be simple to replace the wood chips, where it would be difficult to replace the sand.
Be simpler process.
Excuse me?
It would be a simpler process, because the wood chips would be a very
Yeah, exactly, they'd be
medium to
on
pick
top.
up. Yeah.
I mean, when they proposed it, they were going to take it out at one stage and put it right back in, because it's all of the sewer hadn't been treated. But if we did it at the outfall,
Yes.
where all of the treatment's been done, and now we're just looking at the nitrogen, would it be beneficial?
But we want it to saturate into the ground. The whole concept of the groundwater is for it to go to the ground. And it's not a treatment. That's not a treatment process at that point. It's just simply you throw it in the ground, let it go down into the water table and go out to the ocean.
But
I don't
isn't
know
the
if it
wood
would-
chips, aren't they absorbing the nitrogen?
Well, it's not nitrogen anymore. It's simply the water. The nitrogen.
But there's
was removed.
nitrogen in it.
Well, there's less than 4 parts per million, sometimes 2 parts per million or less. So when we get done
So
treating
nitrogen isn't our problem?
no, the discharge is our problem. Our problem is getting rid of the water once we treat it. We get nitrogen down to between 2 and 4 now. We exceed our permit. That's not our issue. The issue is once we treat it, we take it to the river. Now we're limited to that. Or if we go to the canal, or wherever we go, it's a limit. And we're saying because we met our limit at the river, where do we take that flow? If we want to go greater, where does that flow go? And the ground is just open space, and let it go on top of it and leach down to the water table and take off. It's just a place to add it to the ground. I think what a discharge is.
But then why are we putting the water through the wood chips?
That's a treatment process. The experiment was done by Woods Hole. We've done the first part, and the concept was to see, opposed to denitrification filters, or maybe a biological mixed liquor process. Could we use the wood chips to remove the nitrogen? Now, we've shown that in a small scale tubular situation, we can remove 100% of the nitrogen. So we know the concept works. Now it's going to be a larger scale to see how much we can move at a larger scale before you take and say, okay, we're going to build a treatment plant around this treatment, because it's actually a treatment process. It's not a discharge. It's pure treatment of nitrogen. And what the concept is, if all the wood chips are better wood chips, we put the sewer on before it goes to the filters, et cetera, and it removes the nitrogen and gets you down to a lower number, then that would be the treatment process we're after. Because if you get lower nitrogen, using the pound and all the different factors, you can add more to the river.
You have the
That's the goal,
water
it's a
gets down to
treatment.
the ultraviolet process and goes through the wood chips to remove the nitrogen, because after the ultraviolet is going into the river.
Go to the river.
So you're going in to remove the nitrogen, additional nitrogen, which gives a lower value. And to what Peter says, we're now pumping it up to a groundwater and removing the nitrogen going into the soil itself or the sand.
We've already removed it. So where the
Well, where have you removed it? If the wood chips after the ultraviolet, that's what we're doing now.
No, it's way before the UV. The UV is just to take out bacteria. Nothing to do with removal of
I'm
nitrogen.
only using that as a location because that's where the wood chips are now. down in that
No,
look?
we just took what we did, yeah, so we
Well, that's where
used
you were
the
running the
source.
experiments, weren't you?
Yes, we
Yeah.
took the series, so now we're saying, we know that we're getting between, because in the winter, we do no nitrogen removal, so we got up to 5 and 6 and 7, so we knew we could reduce it at that time of the year. We also knew that when we're putting 2 in the summer, we can remove it. So now the question is, do we take it before? And this what this new grant project is. Now we'll take it before it gets to the filters. We're going to take it once it leaves the secondary treatment. We'll take it from that point and then throw on the wood chips, and we'll have higher numbers going in, maybe 10 or 11 parts per million of nitrogen.
Okay.
And let's see if we can reduce it. If it is reducible and get it down to a permit level, then we get rid of the cost of the filters and the chemicals and all that.
I was looking at in a physical location of the process of where it physically was located for the testing.
Yeah, it was physically there because it was more convenient at the time we
Okay.
did the
Okay,
experiment.
then I misunderstood
It was
that.
right there. No, and now we're going to pump it out of the clarifier. When it leaves the clarifier, before it gets to the filtration,
Okay.
the denitrilation, we'll take it there to higher nitrogen, and then we'll experiment. If we can remove it, then there's another policy. The concept is if a treatment.
Okay, I just
it's a treatment
misunderstood
concept.
because of the location. Oh, okay, I understand now, Guy.
No, it's anyways.
Anything else? Andy, anything else?
Nope. Nope.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Mark. That was good.
Now, Guy, at this point, is there anything, based on what you've heard today, that you'd like to comment on?
You want Alan next?
I think Alan has the floor, but not really. I think,
No.
I just got the highlights of the presenters, and I think they're pretty valid points and some good points. And I think what I'm taking from this more than anything else is the concept of teamwork, the concept of everybody rolling up their sleeves and finding the real needs. We know we need an outfall, and how do we do it? But generally speaking, we know the town wants to grow. We know it's not going to grow. And so our job is to figure out how to get it to grow, which is the outfall, which is capacity. Simple as that. We know the plant has issues. That's another whole, not what this meeting's about, but it's another whole meeting. And so we can address that. But bottom line is, town's not going to grow. Something that impressed me is the speakers were saying it's a town problem. They didn't say it was a sewer user problem. They said it was a town problem. So they talk about town growth. And so if it's a town problem, then it's a town problem. But the town problem is going to be financed by the sewer users. And I don't know if that's fair or not fair, and I don't want to get into that conversation, but that was brought up, and it struck me as, yeah, we're saying the town can't grow. The town can't bring in the choo-choo train. The town, and then yet we're talking, how is the ratepayers going to pay for it? So I don't know what the long-term answers are. And then Patrick talked about septic systems throughout the town. So at one point in time, when there's another watershed plan done, that's a town problem. So wastewater is going to be controlled by the town, whether it's septic or if it's sewer. So maybe the town should be under a general wastewater for the entire town, and some are on septic tanks, some are on sewer, and then it becomes a town problem, and then financing may be more doable. I don't know. But bottom line is, we know sewer and water are the crux to growth of any community. And we can throw darts and we can beat each other up and we can blame and we can do this. And I can show you how smart we are. But the bottom line is as a town, we have a major issue and we've got to solve it. And the speakers did a great job of bringing points out. I commend them for coming and commend them for pointing those things out. And the board, they say it's your problem. I disagree. You have to solve some things, but I disagree. It's a town problem. The whole town has to get together. Okay, where are we going? How are we going to get there? How do we get in some type of unison? And how do we do this? And I think that's the real crux of the whole problem. But as my observations, that's all I got. And but I liked it. Some great speakers, and I think we know where we're going.
I think you're right. It is a town problem, and they have given us the responsibility of trying to solve it and advising them as such. And through this workshop, I think we gained an awareness how everything affects other departments and what their needs are. And it all comes down to us as far as sewerage is concerned. And just give an explanation. In the original document, it had Selectman Slavin scheduled to speak, and then I spoke with the chairman of the Board of Select Board, and one of the unfortunate things of being elected, I mean, we're elected also, But as a selectman, it's hard to go anywhere and not lose the mantle of selectman. And because he was slated, he would be speaking as a selectman, as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, and that was not my intention, nor his initially, since we are both on the same page and encourage the expansion that is necessary. So I give that as an explanation as why was not called upon, and why Ms. Wertz wanted to ask a question, and Selectman Wertz, and that was the reason why I said no. And it wasn't because it isn't necessarily an open meeting per se, but it's a formal meeting. And that's the reason why I did not call on them. And I think that's about it. If anyone else has any more comments, questions from the board? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
No, I just gave an
Okay.
explanation as to why we weren't.
The motion was the second and the time is 3:33.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The vote 4-0-0. Thank you very much.